And welcome to today's webinar on RES software and dynamic desktops. So let's start with a little bit about RES software themselves, just so we know where they are and what they're about. They were founded in '99, so they have been around for quite some time, and they were focused specifically on providing a strategic solution to organizations. It's not a quick fix for a particular problem. It's something that is designed, the solutions that they provide, designed to fit into the strategic path of organizations. So it's not something that's going to lock you, say, into a physical environment or into a virtual environment. The solutions that will sit across the top of those types of environments to provide services and solutions across there. Now, they've been around for quite some time, so there's over 3,000 customers using RES software technologies, and they are based within EMEA. So they're present in 8 countries, but representatives across the world. And MarXtar, the organisation that I'm from, we're a certified partner within the UK, providing both the software and the associated services and consulting and training around those solutions as well. So when we look at what RES software is about, we're looking at the fact that the challenge for IT has changed. Historically, that's been device-centric. All we had to care about was the single device that our users would use in order to do their work. But this has now changed. We're now into more of a user-centric model, where we need to be presenting the working environment for our users, whatever kind of device that they decide to use in order to access the environment. Now, this could be occasional remote access or access to applications through mobile devices like iPads or iPhones or Android-based devices, tablets, or the ability to work in a completely mobile fashion using virtual desktops, or possibly bring your own device, or internally through hot desking. So we're not having a one-to-one relationship for the PC to the users as well. So whichever model we're talking here, whether it be one or a combination, we need to be ready to present the user's personal workspace, including the appropriate connections that they need to different services, printers, devices, applications, to them in whatever model best suits for the position, the location that they're in. Old-fashioned device-centric tools such as SCCM or Altiris or the like, they can't really handle this. They're still focused on managing the endpoint of the device itself, hence endpoint management. And therefore they need to be expanded, or in some cases replaced by something with this evolving business need in mind. So when we look at RES, we're not looking at one particular product, we're looking at a suite of solutions to address this business need. So we see that this concentrates on presenting with Workspace Manager a consistent personal desktop experience, understanding the context, as in the location, the connection type, the type of device, etc. of the user, and the security requirements of the business, such as whitelisting or blacklisting of applications, and especially not just monitoring of software licensing, but the enforcement of that, something that becomes much more complex when we're involved with different types of devices or a mixed physical or virtual environment. With Automation Manager, we're going beyond just presentation of the workspace. We're into automation of the delivery of software, or delivery of settings to a device, or provision of services automatically, whether this be something as complex as the building and provisioning of an entirely new Citrix server and connecting that into an existing farm, or the automatic creation of new starters. In education, for example, if there's a large influx of students on a regular basis, being able to create those and associate them correctly with the rights and the types of services that they need. And even automatically doing this based off the results of something from our service desk, a request within there via what we term as service orchestration. So linking into our normal business tools so that IT don't have to manually intervene to perform something that really is a simple task for automation. And looking at the data, the information that our users, our business need access to, the hyperdrive technology solution acknowledges the fact that users need to have access to their data on whatever type of device that they need, while recognizing the inherent security risks of commonly used services such as Dropbox. So by providing a multi-platform or multi-OS corporate solution, we can give the users the flexibility they need in order to do their jobs, while making sure that your organization, your business, retains the control and the ownership of that data without it sitting in some unknown, some faceless organization out somewhere in the cloud. So that's enough of the slides, just to give you a bit of a picture as to the portfolio and the position, the direction that RES and MarXtar are coming from within here. So what we'll do at this point is we'll actually go and start to take a look at a solution. So I've got a few virtual machines running in this environment, and everything you're going to see here is completely live. So hopefully nothing's going to go wrong and give you extra entertainment that you weren't planning for. But you will see everything, all the concepts I'm going to go through are completely live. And this is a taster of the different types of things that we could be doing. So at the moment I'm just on my Active Directory controller. I'm going to start really at the beginning. We have a new user that's going to be starting with their environment, somebody called Jerry Maguire. They're going to need a new machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building that machine for them. Now I'm in Active Directory users and computers because to make it simple, everything that we create we're going to put into this new users section here. So let me just refresh it so we can see nothing up the sleeves. So there is no computer account, there is no user account at this point. So we'll start to look in here at the automation manager modules of RES. Within here we have the concepts of tasks, so the types of instructions, the types of activities that we can be performing either on an endpoint or to an Exchange server, an Active Directory controller. We can do any type of task realistically, or interacting with SQL servers, and we can combine each of those tasks into what we term as modules. So towards the bottom here we can see we've got things like software installations, collecting inventory for devices. I've got a few steps involved here with creating and provisioning a new user, but I'm going to particularly use this pre-stage a bare metal system. So let me just kick this one off. So I'm going to schedule this. I'm going to point this to an existing technology that most organizations will have available, the Windows deployment services. So I'll just start this on here. Now this could be using a spreadsheet that your vendors provided with all of the different MAC addresses of the machines that you've received. In this case I've pre-inserted the MAC address of the new hardware, and all I need to do is give this the name of the machine. So I'm going to make this so we can see it's related to this particular user. I say this could be using the parameters from a file, it could even be coming from the service desk. So I'll fire that off. There we go, so that's scheduled. And once that's run, we should, all things being equal, there we go. We have the computer account set. So now I'll just go over to a brand new bare metal system and I'll kick this off. And we're going to boot this one into Pixie. So we're not going to watch this build because this is going to take about 15 minutes or so to complete because it's a full imaging process. But I just want us to be able to see that this system is kicking off and it's beginning the build process for a new machine. So there we go. So the Pixie server has picked that up. The Windows deployment service has started that process, and just to make sure we see that this isn't just a pre-built machine, we should see shortly the build process begin. Okay, so we'll leave that running and we'll switch back across into AD. So we've got the machine that's building, but we've got the user that we also need to create. So let's go and have a look at this. So when we had a look at our modules earlier on, we saw that there were a few steps involved: creating the user, creating the home drive and setting the appropriate security for that, creating a mailbox with an Exchange will be quite useful so that there's something ready for them, creating or configuring the user, and then sending them a welcome email. Each one of those is an individual task that somebody may be involved in setting up, and each one of those may happen on different systems. So we can combine those into what we term as runbooks. And if I delve into that, we can see each of those individual modules can be associated to different systems as well. So whichever system is the best place to be able to perform these tasks, we can be combining these together and running on the appropriate systems. So I'll schedule this. I'm doing this one manually rather than using it from an existing list, or again this is an ideal one for maybe HR filling in the information within our request system and us kicking this job off afterwards. So I'll just provide the appropriate information here. So Jerry Maguire, so date of birth, and I think we all know Jerry's in sales, and that should do us, and then just click OK. So we see that the job there is scheduled, and that should be kicking off pretty soon, and we should see that in the current activity. We'll start to see that begin to create that user. So let's see as that gets started. There we go. So we're beginning that first stage, so we're going to create the user. That shouldn't take too long. That's going to happen within AD. Okay, now it's moved on to creating the home directory. So while that happens, let's go and just do a quick refresh. There we go. The user's now been prepared within Active Directory, ready for that user to start. And let's see if we got the timing right. If we go to Exchange, let's just do a quick refresh within here. Not quite got to the Exchange section yet. Let's see where we are. There we go. It's creating the mailbox at the moment. Let's see how our bare metal build's going. There we go. Installation's still happening. So over on Exchange, do we see any information about them yet? Exchange is the slowest part of the process, unfortunately. But we'll see that create, and we'll come back to Jerry later on. So this will just take a minute or so to complete, but we'll come back and we'll look at using Jerry's account for the first time on that newly built machine later on. So let's have a look at what happens in general use. Let's move across to an XP system. I'm going to log into this XP system, so this is our older environment. I'm going to log into this as an existing user. So this guy is a member of our sales team, and this is a shared system. This is some hot desking, comes in, just uses this particular desk or today. So logging in, we want to provide to this user the particular environment that they would expect. So we're going to do a few obvious visual things just to show that we recognize who this particular person is. I said that they're part of the sales department, so we can see the wallpaper's been selected as the sales wallpaper, and we've detected the location, so they're in Basingstoke. Well, let's have a look at what else we provided to them. If we open up my computer, standard things: the home directory, the sales drivers are mapped for the Basingstoke location, and on the printer side we've provided them the Basingstoke sales printer. So far so good. Standard sort of things you would expect to see within maybe login scripts or within GPOs. If we look into the software that they've got available to them, this looks fairly standard. They've got access to Microsoft Office. Not absolutely everything. We've got Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint and Word. There's no access, and this organisation does actually use Microsoft Project, but it's quite expensive, so we don't give it to everybody. The sales department aren't allowed Project, so that's not available, and some generic apps, but not much else. What we're doing with Workspace Manager is presenting the environment, the applications that the user should have within their start menu. So this is what sales users should have. Let's see the difference then if we log in as a member of a different department. So we'll just log out. And this time, let's log in as Dave Miller. So Dave, in the same building, but is a member of the finance department. So what we're seeing here again is the workspace being dynamically created and provisioned on the fly. So the background now says, well, they're still in Basingstoke because it's still in the same office, and they're in finance. So we've updated the department within there. Let's see what else they've been provided from a printer's perspective. Okay, it's a finance printer. Good stuff. And if we look at my computer, the Dave Miller home directory and the finance drive in Basingstoke as well. So that's quite useful. So let's have a look at the applications that we've been presented with. Now we see there's a little bit of difference in the start menu at the bottom, but if we go through my programs, Office has been expanded. This user's been granted access to Microsoft Project. Now we've not installed any different software, we simply presented the application, it's now available to them, and there's a finance section within here. So there's access in this case to SQL Management Studio, but there could be a database based finance application. So other than what we've seen within the start menu, we've seen standard things to do with that we could do with group policy objects or login scripts. But when we start getting into the applications, that's where we're going beyond realistically what we can do with group policies. And in this case, anybody that's using project in our environment, they should be saving those on the project drive. But as we can see within my computer, we don't have a project drive, it's not been mapped. So we can actually be attaching tasks and actions against applications. So in this case, I've just started up Microsoft Project, it's been granted to me, and in the background, when that's been launched, we have the project drive. So things that historically will slow down the login process for users, we're taking those out and we're providing those on demand. So one of the big things we can do just with the workspace manager piece is to very much speed up the login process. We don't have to have a login script that does absolutely everything possible just in case it's being used. We provide what is needed by that user, when they need it, and where they need it. So a simple one for a project within there. Now, we're in the XP environment here. This user really, we're going to be moving them across to Windows 7 at some point. And one of the difficulties when we do an OS migration is to make sure that they get their application preferences, the look and feel that they're used to within that Windows 7 environment. Now, if you're using XP at the moment in a roaming profile environment, people can move between the different machines and their preferences will move across with them. But that doesn't skip between the different operating system levels. If we want to be able to have those settings across to Windows 7, we need to use external tools in order to get that. Let's see what happens if we log off from our XP system, and we'll log in as Dave now, but we'll do that on our Windows 7 system as well. So let's move across. So here we go, our Windows 7 system. Let's log in as Dave. Again, we're preparing the environment for Dave based off who they are, who he is, where he is, what department he's part of, the context of that particular user. Okay, and you may have seen I reorganized the icons on my XP build so that my Office ones were at the bottom and everything else was at the top. That's moved across. That's gone between an XP environment into a Windows 7 environment. So we're taking the user settings and preferences, and we can do that for the applications as well. So the transition between an older operating system into the newer operating system can be virtually seamless as far as the users are concerned. Same sort of thing as far as the applications. We're presenting out, say, projects still available to this user, the finance applications are available, and FileZilla, which is one of the generic applications being available. Now, not every system we have is necessarily the same. Not everybody needs the same software. So while we've got FileZilla available here, if we actually go and have a look in my computer, program files, what we don't see is the FileZilla folder. So FileZilla actually isn't installed on this machine, but it's been made available to us through the start menus. If we click on that, what we'll see at the bottom left is we're doing an installation on demand. In this case, we're combining the presentation of the user's workspace in with the automation and the delivery of a service. So the FileZilla folder has now been created, and once that installation's taken place, we'll start up that application, and that will work. So that's automation from within RES itself. That could be linking into an external system such as Microsoft's SCCM. So if you've got an existing investment in that technology, then perhaps we could simply make use of that in order to provide the delivery mechanism, if not the automation method. So nice and simple, FileZilla's now been delivered on demand. One of the other applications we've been presented with the finance department is the SQL Server Management Studio. Let's launch that, and we can see that that's launched a local copy of that. We're connecting to a database, and if this was the finance system, maybe QuickBooks or something similar, this is really dependent on a high-speed LAN connection. Trying to do that across a dial-up or a slow WAN speed isn't a particularly good thing to do for the database access tools. So maybe we want to control what they can do, where they can access that from. So let's have a look at how that happens. So you can see we're currently in the Basingstoke area. I'll simulate moving to a different office. I'm going to change the network that this virtual machine is connected to be part of the hypothetical Birmingham office within here. We can start to see that the environment is being auto-detected. The context of that device, the context of that user, is automatically being adapted based off the network location of the device. So we'll start to see a few things change within here. It's refreshing the user's workspace based off that context. So as before, the wallpaper said we were in Basingstoke. Any second now we should see that it recognizes our change, and now we're in Birmingham. Our default printer's changed. Previously we were using the Basingstoke finance printer, and just because we moved office we don't particularly want to be printing to the same printer in a different office. That's been detected. And more importantly, for the particular example we're looking at here, even though our finance application is installed locally, that doesn't mean we should run the locally installed one. If we go to install SQL Server, actually we're automatically going to be going through and launching the thin version of this. So we're launching the remote app version of that finance application instead. So we're context aware for provision of either the thin or the fat applications. And in some cases, are we on a machine that is physically capable of running a particular application locally, or should it be presented out either through remote app in this case, or VMware Thin app, or Citrix Zen app? So we can control the presentation of that. Okay, let's go and see what's happening as far as our bare metal. So we've got an operating system on that one. We're preparing this for the office use. We are at the point of installing Office 2010. So we're on the road to that being ready. So what we've seen then from our Windows 7 perspective is that thin application has now been loaded. So connecting into that database, and we've highlighted this slightly differently so we can see it's the different application running. Now we're not going to be really burying the WAN bandwidth, we're simply going to be presenting out the application running on our central application provision. So automatic, completely seamless as far as the users are concerned. Let's have a look at maybe more of a full VDI type. Well, let's do this in our case as a remote desktop session. I'm going to start up this session and connect and start up a full environment. Just going to leave an application running in the background here, and we'll go, our remote desktop connection should start connecting hopefully soon, and let's see what gets provided to us in this environment. Okay, so again, our workspace environment is being prepared for us automatically based on who we are. So we're in now a remote desktop session here, or this could be a full VMware view or a Citrix VDI environment. Presented to us, we got the applications that we would normally have access to. Not everything, so maybe we've not presented out absolutely everything that would be available to that user if they were on a physical system. So we got the same sort of idea within here. Now, what we will see shortly as this session settles is FileZilla is now running within this session. But we're not actually running FileZilla within this environment. What this is the Resolution VDX Virtual Desktop Extender. As people move towards a virtual environment, we may start to give people their primary working desktop being a VDI session or even a remote desktop session, as we're doing here. But not every application, not every task that somebody performs is suitable for virtualization. We will probably still have some physical systems out there that we can't do anything about if we're using 3D applications, if we're using multimedia applications, video perhaps, or even communication, Skype. Then those really lend themselves towards a physical system rather than trying to replicate the same capabilities at a very expensive level within the server environment. So in the same way as you're familiar with Remote App and Citrix Zen App, an application running on a server is presented in a seamless window on the endpoint. This is reverse seamless windows. So FileZilla is actually running locally on my PC here, but that is being presented seamlessly within my VDI, a remote desktop session, so that from a user perspective there's no switching between windows, there's no switching between environments. They can use the environment as they need it, even to the point where we can merge the start menus. So in this case I have Microsoft Office available to us. I launch Word, and up comes Word. As far as I'm concerned, I'm running Word within my virtual desktop, but actually Word has been launched and is running locally on my system here. So completely seamless, being able to launch and use locally installed applications within that VDI session. Maintaining the single pane of glass view, whether we're using VDI or a mixed environment, we can make sure that the people that have to have physical systems can still be part of our VDI environment very simply. Okay, so I think timing wise, let's go and have a look at our bare metal. There we go. We have a system that's now ready at the login prompt, and yes, confirm. There we go. Our preparing a system for office use has been completed, and we can see there that was the invoked module for FileZilla that we did earlier on. So now let's log in as Jerry. We've been provided our automatically built system. Let's log in as Jerry for the first time and see what we get presented with. So username, password, let's hope I've typed that right, and we should see, there we go, we're preparing the desktop, doing this for the first time on this machine, brand new machine, logging in as a brand new user, never logged anywhere in the environment. Give that a few seconds to complete. We can see it going through the different steps and the different services and connections that it's provisioning for us. And there we go. So we put Jerry into the sales department, and there we are, Jerry is in sales, and we've happily mapped Jerry to the appropriate devices, printers, and there we go. There's his home drive that's been created for him and connected to the sales drive. So that's all happened automatically for us. Now we've presented Jerry with access to the applications as we saw early on when we logged in as a different sales user. Same applications, and FileZilla is one of those. Now this is a brand new system. We've provisioned this with our base applications. Maybe FileZilla isn't one of our base applications, so we could be looking at the install on demand for that application. However, in this case we can't launch because we're looking at now not just the presenting of the applications to the users that need them, but the control over the licensing of those applications. Just as an example, I've attached a license count to the FileZilla program, and I've linked that to a concurrency. This could be seat-based licensing, it could be named user licensing, but in this case I'm using concurrency based. So I can't launch this application until Dave Miller, the finance guy, closes that down. And moving back over to our other Windows 7 system, there's FileZilla, I've left that running. So if I close that down from within Dave's session, move it back across into Jerry's session, I'm not going to wait the 10 seconds, I'll just click retry, and there we go. So the on-demand installation's going to happen, and then FileZilla will launch for us. So we go beyond now just a presentation of the applications that people need. We go beyond just monitoring what applications are being used. We're actually moving into license enforcement. If you don't have a license for that application, then not only can people not install it based off the automation, but they can't use it until that license becomes free. Now you may have heard, there's quite a few people that probably haven't, that Microsoft are about to increase their licensing costs by about 25% due to the exchange rate changes. So it's non-compliancy audits on those are going to be costing you even more. So the importance of being able to provide the right information within the audits and the ability to show that you can enforce those license counts, whatever type of licensing, concurrency, seat or named users, having that ability to make sure you don't go above, and to make sure that you're not caught out with a report that shows you using 20% more than you owned. RES software with the Workspace Manager can do that. Now, this is a locally installed application. It's not a Citrix Zen app or a remote app, but if it was, that same licensing overview would be happening whether this is a thin application or a fat application. And if you wanted to, on our Windows 7 system over here from the other finance guy, I can't run it from here because, again, one concurrent license. Jerry is using that. So maybe I think, well, I know where that's installed. So let's go and find, there you go, there's FileZilla, there's the executable. Rather than using the managed shortcut that have been provided, let's go and launch FileZilla. We can't, because with RES we can make sure that not only are they only presented with the applications they need, that the licenses are enforced, we can also be stopping them from running the applications that aren't approved for them, even if they're physically installed on there. So in theory now you can install a licensable piece of software on every machine, even as part of your base build, but still stay within compliance because only a certain number of users concurrently or a certain number of PCs will ever be able to use that and be able to remove a license and reallocate a license whenever you need to, while always staying within compliance. And those users can't get around that at all. So we've seen quite a few things within there. It's a very quick overview, but hopefully we've seen that useful. Everything, again, as you saw, was live, even a couple of mistakes as we went through. So we saw at the beginning automated service provisioning. We created a new user, and this could easily have been the 1 user or 1,000 users, along with the associated rights and services that they needed, the home directory, the mailbox. We were also provisioning automatically a new machine from a completely clean system along with the base applications required, and that user's logging in and dynamically being provided with the user environment that they need. Some things that we could do within GPOs, but obviously a lot simpler, or certainly some things that you can't possibly even hope to achieve within GPOs. And presenting out the applications required for their environment, even differently on the same machine, and the migration of their user settings. We saw it just very simply as far as the user, the icons on the user's desktop were concerned, but actually if I switch just quickly back over to our new system over here, this was a brand new user. Start up our Outlook system, and we'll automatically be providing them as well with the standard settings that they should have, including even the signatures, the color schemes, the themes that they prefer within those applications. Each one of those will be migrated between the different operating system versions. So pretty useful, and again seamless to the user. Auto provisioning and adapting the workspace itself based off the context of the user or the device. We saw application installation on demand, whether that be within the RES automation or from integration, say, with SCCM. The context of where launching of the applications themselves, whether that be the physically installed application or the launching of a virtual application, all depending on where it is, whether it's installed, what type of connection they would have. And the ability to integrate both the physical and the virtual with everything we've seen so far, but also the single pane view into VDI systems for those physical systems that you need to maintain. If you need to have 3D CAD systems, they can still have a primary working environment of VDI, but those locally installed applications that aren't suitable for VDI will still appear. And across the top of all of this, whether it be physical or virtual, Jerry couldn't launch an unlicensed application at all on his device, and that was enforced. There was no way of going underneath the covers, there was no way to circumvent that licensing. So you can provide the flexibility that the users need, but make sure that your organization stays within its compliance, so you don't get any of the fines, and you can stay well within your license requirement and save money. In fact, reduce, ideally, the license renewal time, because you show exactly what's being used and that it's enforced. Any additional questions that you'd like to take offline or like to know how to follow up on this, there are free evaluations of the software that you've seen available for you online. Just go to our dedicated website, which I've typed incorrectly. So that's redsoftware.markstar.co.uk. It's not an email address, so please ignore the @ we'll be happy to assist you if you want to test that out, evaluate it. It is very compelling and very simple to get running. It's just a matter of minutes to get the software installed, providing you've got a database for us to connect to, and within half a day you'll be able to get a system that's running and showing you really the power of what you can achieve. If you want to ask any additional questions, then by all means either put it through to myself if you've got my email address, or through to sales@markstar.com, and you'll get a response back very shortly. Any additional technical questions you have as to whether it's possible to coexist or to perform particular tasks, just let us know. And the session has been recorded, so providing that worked properly, then we'll be making that recording available to you shortly following this session. So thank you very much for your time. We hope you found that useful, and we look forward to speaking to you and working with you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.